Long Beach begins citing homeless people now during encampment sweeps.
All right, so here's the question. What's next? Fox 5's Wendy Patrick joining us now to explain. Wendy, good morning.
Good morning.
What's going on and where is the legal precedent for this?
Well, a lot of cities across the nation are using the recent SCOTUS decision, the U.S. Supreme Court decision allowing local municipalities to have restrictions on camping. Now, that's different than perhaps sleeping on a bench, or is it? The analysis is being really undertaken on a case-by-case basis, and Long Beach has made news most recently by saying, look, we're going to impose fines. We're going to impose potential jail time. But then that begs the question, how do you think somebody with no money is going to pay a fine?
Right.
Yeah.
And how are we going to house them when jails are already overcrowded? And on top of all of that, there's really a push nationwide towards a human-centered approach to the problem to begin with. So it's one of those issues that I suppose the silver lining is that we're now discussing what would that look like if you were to try to enforce it. So the dialogue now is that this would be a last resort. It would focus on areas where there's potentially a public safety risk, blocking access to schools, beaches, parks, libraries, and where there are people that are refusing offers of shelter. So they're trying to really narrow it down to a subset. And even within that subset, it would be a last resort. But again, let's see how this works.
We always talk about enforcement when they come up with new rules and new laws. Well, how is this going to look in real life, if you will? Who do you give a citation to? Who do you just say, come on, move along? And then again, move along to what? Move along to where?
And I like the way you phrased it. So the move along to what and to where, can you just bring them into Orange County or Los Angeles? That obviously wouldn't solve the problem. Yeah. What it would solve is there's different regulations at different jurisdictions. But one of the other questions I think is even more important, who do you target? That's what they seem to be focusing on. Because simply having rules and regulations in shelters is not an option for people that refuse to go. Building tiny homes, as many jurisdictions, including ours, have talked about, sometimes people say, look, you're going to put somebody in a home that's not theirs, expect them to take care of it. Are there issues there? There's a lot of public opposition. So at the very least, when you think through how many of these people we can actually help, that becomes more of the dialogue. Well, perhaps there's a way, not simply to say this is where we're going to keep you, but here's how we're going to help you. And let me just toss out one more thing, because you guys were all talking about Alaska. So cold climates, maybe you have an overinflated statistic as to how many people are in shelters, because if you only look in January, which is when a lot of cities measure who's housed and who isn't housed, I mean, think about Alaska, New York City, cold climates, maybe even here. Yeah. You're going to get a larger percentage of people in shelters when that's not the case.
Of course.
Right now, for example, when we're talking about Long Beach, where it's hot.
Where it's hot. Let's go back to these fines. When they fine in Long Beach, how much are these fines?
Wouldn't that be nice if that would be an easy thing to find? I have been looking to see if anybody were to give a number. My guess is that the reason many municipalities are not ready to cough up a number is they really don't know what, if anything, these offenders could pay. And then that would beg the further question, you can't criminalize homelessness, so what happens if you can't pay the fine?
Right.
You can't criminalize, and you can't go, just imagine, just play it out in your head.
Yeah.
A police officer, somebody enforcing this, see homeless people who are struggling, maybe mental health, like, excuse me, sir, here's a ticket for you for this encampment. Then they walk up. Okay, what?
Right, well, here's
That's
another
not
thing.
a solution.
Here's another potential solution along the lines of why that one won't work. What about, and this is again from the Long Beach jurisdiction, this conversation, what about temporarily relocating homeless people, cleaning out the area? You know, sanitation and safety are always listed as two priorities. Right. Cleaning the area and then allowing them to enjoy public space during the day for which it was intended. You have lots of public officials everywhere in all jurisdictions saying these spaces were not only for people that already have a separate home. Sometimes it's the evening activities where fires are being built, there's alcohol, sometimes there's drug activity. Those tend to be the more problematic zones and what many residents are talking about. And those might be the circumstances that might, you might have a fine. Now, people can work off fines, obviously that's within the justice system, but then there's an outcry, why get these people into that system to begin with if there's a better way?
Okay, so this is happening in Long Beach. Now, the likelihood of us seeing this come to like other cities and
Yeah, I always say coming to a jurisdiction near you. I always say that. And you know, it always does. The issue's already here, as it is in every other city, hot, cold, all over the globe, actually. But the question of what enforcement mechanisms would work in what kind of area depends on things like open space, residential area, proximity to schools, libraries, beaches, all the types of things we have a lot of here. We're a coastal community, as is Long Beach. So there's all of these issues that we still have to keep talking through. And I have to say, it's almost a blessing that we keep talking about this happening in different cities, because it gets us dialoguing more and having the conversation of what type of options might be available today.
So like Long Beach does that, and it's like the homeless will then end up in Torrance or in Carson or something nearby. How does this differ from what the governor did a couple weeks ago, saying that municipalities have permission to dismantle encampment? It seems like everybody's kind of nitpicking around the same kind of sort of thing, without a plan of where to put the people.
It's actually a strategy of enforcement in a way. I mean, remember in LA, we have all those pictures of Gavin Newsom with his shovel helping to clean up encampments. So it's all sort of look, this is the law now. We have to figure out how to enforce it. But the last thing I'll toss into the mix here is it's also true that in every jurisdiction, new land becomes available to create a parking lot, if you're allowed to sleep in your cars, a place where you may be able to legally camp. So as these public spaces become increasingly available, the conversation continues, because maybe that location isn't near a school or the beach or a private library or a public library. So these are the kinds of reasons that we keep talking about it. But I have to say, you know what? Knowledge is power, and the more we know about what works and doesn't work, we'll just have to keep talking.
A lot doesn't work, and nobody knows how to figure it out.
We'll get the
And
crystal ball out. And
I mean, it's a sad state of affairs just all around. Wendy Patrick, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the insight
Good to
always.
see you.